Look at a map today and you'll see one defined country. But if you look at its history, this massive subcontinent goes by many names. Bharat, Hindustan, India. How did one place end up with so many overlapping identities? To figure that out, we have to rewind about 4,000 years and look at how the earliest inhabitants of this land defined their own home. The oldest surviving text from the region, the Rig Veda, doesn't use any of the names we recognize today. Instead, it calls the northwest area Sapta Sindhava, which translates to the land of seven rivers. The root of that name, Sindhava, comes from Sindhu, and Sindhu was the ancient name for the massive waterway we now call the Indus River. The very first names for this land had nothing to do with political borders or kingdoms. They were literal descriptions of the life-giving geography that the ancient people depended on to survive. As that ancient civilization expanded away from those riverbanks and across the wider subcontinent, their way of naming the land evolved. It became tied to their culture, their local plants, and their grand epics. Take the great ancient poem, the Mahabharata. It introduces the term Bharata Varsha. This translates to the country of the Bharatas, naming the entire region after a legendary ancient emperor and his descendants. Ancient texts also use the name Jambu Twipa. This translates to the island of the jambu trees, referring to a native fruit tree that grows across the region. Here, the land's identity is directly linked to its local flora. We see this name etched in stone by Emperor Ashoka in the 3rd century BCE. He used the term Jambu Twipa to describe his sprawling territory. But look closely at the map. When ancient people said Bharata Varsha or Jambu Twipa, they weren't talking about the exact political borders of modern India. These terms described a broad cultural zone that extended far into present-day Pakistan and Bangladesh. These early names grew directly from the soil, reflections of the native trees, legendary ancestors, and local rivers that shaped the ancient worldview. What happens when you approach this land from the outside? How did foreign travelers, traders, and invaders describe the subcontinent as they journeyed toward it from the east and the west? In the 6th century BCE, the ancient Persians expanded eastward. The very first geographic hurdle they hit was that massive western boundary, the Sindhu River. The Persian language pronounced the S sound as an H, turning Sindhu into Hindu. In these early records, Hindu had no religious meaning. It was strictly a geographic marker for the land beyond that great river. As trade moved further west, the ancient Greeks egged up the Persian name, but the Greek language didn't have an H sound. So they dropped the first letter entirely, turning Hindu into Indoi or Indike. Over centuries, this eventually became India. Meanwhile, a completely different linguistic journey was happening to the east, along the ancient Silk Road connecting the subcontinent to China. Chinese scholars and pilgrims also based their names for the region on the word Sindhu. In their language, it morphed into Yindu. Some even called it Tianju, meaning heavenly master, a sign of deep respect for the land where the Buddha lived and taught. The indigenous people named the land after their deep shared culture, but the rest of the world named it after the very first massive physical hurdle they had to cross to get there. Fast forward to 1950. The subcontinent is a newly independent nation drafting its own constitution. The framers faced a heavy practical question. What do you officially call a country on the world stage when it has so many historical names? They had two strong choices. They could use Bharat, anchoring the republic to its rich indigenous cultural identity. Or they could use India, the name forged by thousands of years of international trade and recognized by the entire globe. Looking at the very first line of the new constitution, we see a brilliant compromise. They chose both. The English text reads, India, that is Bharat, while the Hindi version reads, Bharat Arthath India. India immediately connects the modern nation to the international community and global diplomacy. At the exact same time, Bharat grounds the republic firmly in its ancient civilizational roots. Legally, this dual naming binds dozens of diverse states and territories under one shared, multi-layered identity. A country's name is a dense historical record. This dual identity serves as a deliberate constitutional bridge, joining thousands of years of civilizational history with its current global reality.